When you think of Lord of the Rings games, you might think of the amazing movie tie-ins, the incredible Shadow of War franchise, or... yeah, that one. And while there are some other amazing gems that don't get the credit they deserve, one that nobody ever seems to talk about is the one that's quite possibly my favourite of them all. Released in 2004, The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age is your classic turn-based RPG that runs parallel to the story of the movie trilogy and does a great job of making you feel like you're right on the Fellowship's heels, sometimes taking some creative liberties with the source material.
You bow to no one.
Now, since I'd never played games similar to this like Final Fantasy, the concept of collecting new equipment and upgrading my stats as a kid was completely new to me. I remember the boss battles being so difficult and taking forever to get through just one area of the game. In fact, I came to the conclusion that I must have completed the game without ever changing my loadout. Of course, that was just my pride talking, and while I didn't know what I was doing, I do remember clicking random buttons and suddenly having a new sword or new armor equipped, and my struggles boiled down to, as usual, being young and inexperienced. But it did leave me wondering for years, so eventually I sat down and decided to find out, can you defeat The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age without swapping equipment? Now, there's really only one restriction for this run, but it's worth making some clarifications. Number one, the obvious one. At no point can I change any of my equipment. That means no matter what weapon, armor, or elfstone I earn as rewards or find in chests along the way, I can never equip anything other than what each character has equipped when they first join the party, so get used to looking at these armor sets because they're not going anywhere. 2. I am allowed to choose where my stat points go. The game forces some level ups anyway, so we might as well make sure character stats are being used to our advantage. 3. I will be manually choosing what skills I unlock. Every successful action you perform gives you a skill point which counts towards unlocking new abilities. The game simply picks the next ability in the queue after learning a new skill, but we have the option to choose where our points go. And since the game's natural progression would really only mean more farming, we're just going to pick our own. And lastly, number 4, I can use items. These have uses ranging from replenishing health and action points to removing enemy armor and resurrecting dead allies. And with that out of the way, we meet Berethor, a man from Gondor sent to find Sean Bean and our damsel in distress who's rescued from some Nazgul by Idriel, an elf in the service of Galadriel and now a member of the exclusive club of named female characters in this franchise. Soon enough, we also meet Elagos, one of the Dunedain Rangers who never uses the sword we see him wield the first time we meet him and instead opts for a bow, and Hadhod the dwarf, a good friend of Elagos who can help us reach Moria. There's something familiar about this party, but I can't quite put my finger on it. The first chapter of the game is a breeze, and we soon find ourselves facing our first boss fight, the Watcher in the Water, who we can only damage with ranged attacks since we can't exactly charge into the lake sword in hand. Immediately prior to this, we see that both orcs and elves are very close to us, yet they vanish when the fight starts and aren't mentioned afterwards, so I only assume they were cut content. With the Watcher defeated, it lashes out in anger and smashes the blockade it created earlier when attacking the Fellowship, which allows us to enter Moria. The mines of Moria are split into two sections, west and east. Not long after entering the mines, you're presented with the same dilemma Gandalf and co did: which path to take. If you don't already know where to go, then get ready for a lot of backtracking because you need to visit all 3 areas, and trust me, it's no fun running back and forth in this area even with good armor. The good news is that we finally unlock an ability which will solidify Idriel as the MVP of this entire run and make things a lot easier to handle pretty much through to the end of the game. Aura of the Valor is one of Idriel's spirit abilities, which allows her to put a protective enchantment on an ally to automatically bring them back to life should they die, replenishing both their HP and action points and giving them the immediate next turn. We also unlock Power of the Valor a little later, which does the same thing but works on an ally who's already dead. And honestly, the animation cycles for these 2 powers are going to be ingrained in my mind until I die. Idriel's other abilities will still be useful for a little while, but before long it will be very rare to see her do anything other than resurrect our allies. Speaking of abilities, every character has 2 categories of skills. Idriel and Hadhod both have spirit and weapon abilities, Elagos has both ranger and bowcrafts. To be honest, they're the same thing. I think the devs just needed something else for him to do, so they just jumbled up the abilities and separated them. And Berethor has his swordcraft and leadership skills. Honestly, I never really used the leadership skill tree before now because the barbarian in me only valued high damage output whenever possible, and it was really this challenge that made me appreciate these passive buffs he would give to the party, and much like Idriel, there will be even more points in the run where Berethor goes full corporate manager mode and just gives out buffs while someone else does the actual work. Anyway, we first head down to the Balrog pit. I wonder why it's called that.
It is a Balrog of Morgoth!
Oh, that's why. And to make matters worse, we're thrown into a brand new fighting setup which blew the mind of 6-year-old me and made it impossible to progress beyond this point for a long time. Fortunately, I've learned a thing or two since then, and our reward for surviving the onslaught is a key kindly plummeted down to us by a hobbit some 1,000 feet above us. That key will help us open up a book of secrets in the throne room which lies at the end of another one of the passageways, which finally gives us the opening words of a secret passage down the final path. Hot on the heels of the Balrog and the Fellowship, we enter Eastern Moria and the path becomes a lot easier to follow here. While Western Moria became a maze of tunnels and constant backtracking for the unfamiliar, Eastern Moria becomes much more linear and can be completed by pretty much holding forward. Before long, we reach the end of the mines and the bridge of Khazad-dûm, where Gandalf is having a tough time with the Balrog. Now you might be thinking there's nothing we can do to help. The bridge of Khazad-dûm is famously only wide enough for one person to fit on, and Gandalf faced the Balrog alone. All we can do is watch and hope to find a way out later. Yeah, remember those creative liberties I mentioned earlier? We do what we can to help, but honestly, you're better off just buffing Gandalf and letting him go to town on the Balrog until we're thrown into a movie cutscene to help transition us from here to the next area of the game. Oh, did I mention that Ian McKellen does a bunch of narration for this game? There's a few in-game cutscenes and dialogue lines, but also a bunch of these things called epic scenes where he gives context for stuff going on in and around the game, and honestly, I'll take any opportunity to listen to him talk. The next area we encounter is the East Emnet Gullies, which is basically where we briefly see the three hunters chasing the band of Uruk-hai that captured Merry and Pippin before they properly enter the plains of Rohan. 3 guesses where the next area of the game is. This area is similar to Western Moria, only way more annoying to navigate, full of tunnels and caves and paths that wind around each other, and if you want to 100% the area, you have to go through all of them to find all the scattered soldiers that need help. You do also get this really cool backdrop of the Argonath for a fight or two, which almost makes up for how annoying the enemies here are. The Uruk-hai here aren't too intimidating, but they are a pain to handle with their new abilities, and how much damage they deal out. They can't quite one-shot you yet, but this is where Idriel stops using any offensive abilities, and you really start to notice the difference between the damage you're dealing and the damage you're taking. After finding all the lost soldiers, the boss battle for this section is a fight against an onslaught of Uruk-hai who continuously spawn for a while. So even if you have a perfect mode ready, the best you can do is weaken or wipe out the first wave, and you'll still have a fight ahead of you. Side note, the game was way ahead of its time with this reference to Aragorn kicking the Uruk-hai helmet. In fact, did you know? Heading into Rohan, Eomer enlists us in gathering the scattered Rohirrim and sending them to Helm's Deep. While doing this, we meet Morwen, who joins our party but honestly doesn't see a second of combat. Similar to the Gullies, we have to traverse the entire map to find all the scattered warriors before we can cross the Orquidden Bridge and reach a village that needs rescuing. It takes a lot of backtracking to get through Snowbourne, since the only way to open the gates and progress is to head up to each platform on either side of the map and then head back again. Eventually we reach the hall at the top of the village where Grima Wormtongue awaits us, and thanks to an ability he has which stops you being able to cast spirit abilities, he manages to catch me off guard without any aura of the Valor buffs active, and we have our first death of the run. It took a few attempts, but I just had to stay vigilant and power through, finally defeating Grima and at the same time freeing Berethor of the possession Saruman had held over him from the shadows for the whole game. As we leave Rohan, we meet Eoden of Rohan's Royal Guard and Morwen's parents not long after. Well, I never said they were still alive. I want to throw in real quick as well, now that Morwen's here, there's a really awkward forced love triangle between Berethor, Morwen and Idriel. Idriel suddenly gets all pissy and mean towards Morwen because God forbid we have 2 female characters get along together. Maybe she's just jealous that there's another member of the exclusive named female characters club. I don't know. But later on, Idriel suddenly turns tail and tells Berethor his destiny lies with Morwen, not her, and everything's fine now. But also, apparently Berethor and Morwen used to be betrothed before Berethor fled the battlefield in disgrace and Morwen's family were banished from Gondor as a result, but they don't recognise each other? I don't know, there's more holes in this plot than in the batch of condoms my ex gave me. Arriving at Helm's Deep, we get to properly meet the 3 hunters for the first time, and Gimli's the only one preparing for battle the right way. If you're about to die, you might as well get a nice meal in first. The Helm's Deep chapter is more of a test of endurance than anything, as it's just fight after fight after fight, helping Legolas on the wall, Aragorn by the entrance gate, and Gimli down on the ground once the wall is breached. The fights with Legolas have an interesting gimmick similar to the Two Towers game, where the ladders need to be kicked down to stop new enemy spawning, but the ladders have health bars of their own and can only be attacked once the enemy in front of them has been killed, so if they're not fully depleted after an attack or two, another Uruk will climb up and you'll have to wait until you've defeated them to finish the ladder off. Group attacks are especially your friend here, since you're going to be fighting a lot of enemies all at once and you want to do as much damage as possible. Hadhod's Flames of Ruin attack not only does massive damage, but passively burns its targets for a few turns too, which is very useful, and Berethor's Company Might will also make sure everyone is dealing as much damage as they can. Eventually the long night ends and Gandalf arrives with backup to save us, but there's no rest for the wicked. We make straight for Osgiliath to help Faramir's men. There's quite a few encounters here that can be considered boss fights, and it's also where we hit our first major hurdle. You see, this is where the bane of my entire strategy was introduced. This bitch right here. Not only can this guy one-shot you, but he has an ability called Morgul Dispel, which removes any buff given to a player, including Aura of the Valor, which in case you haven't noticed is the glue holding this run together. The one saving grace is that it takes a full turn to cast on one player at a time, so if you're lucky and fast, you can make them your primary target and get them out of the fight ASAP. To make matters worse, the 2 spellcasters on the platforms at the back not only are heavy damage dealers, but also have an ability similar to Hadhod's Devastating Shield, which deals equal damage taken back onto whoever harms them, and another spell which negates all damage done to whoever it's cast on, essentially making them invincible. And the final cherry on top is that Gothmog will call in reinforcements when his party starts getting a little small, so all the time and effort put into getting rid of them feels completely pointless. At first we try going full force into Gothmog and dealing with his cronies later. This works at first, but the constant reappearance of the Lancer made things impossible as it had more frequent turns than Idriel, so we could dispel any aura of the Valor I managed to cast and let the others finish us off. This happened a ridiculous amount of times, to the point that I started to wonder if this was even going to be possible. Other fights could be a slog, but I knew they were doable with enough perseverance. As long as I could keep up aura of the Valor on Idriel and whoever else I could manage, eventually their health would drop to 0. But with this prick around, my main strategy was lost. Until I realised something. Gothmog would only call reinforcements if he lost 2 of his 3 allies, so if I could get rid of the Lancer but keep the mages alive, no other reinforcements would be called and I could focus on Gothmog. The strat became this. Idriel as usual is the MVP, keeping everyone alive. Aodin would use his Dispel ability whenever possible to remove the buffs on the orcs and drain their health once they were vulnerable. Berethor buffs the party with his leadership skills and uses his War Call to give any ally still standing free attacks on the Lancer and Gothmog. And Faramir... Okay, here's the thing. I love Faramir, he's one of the best characters in the books, and even though the movies did him dirty, he's still a man of quality. But in this fight, he's really just taking up space in the action queue, so we let him buff our armor for a bit when his turn comes around, but he's really better off dead. At last, the Lancer was defeated and I could focus all my energy on dealing as much damage as possible to Gothmog and Gothmog alone, since I couldn't risk one of the mages dying and reinforcements being called in. It took a long time, but eventually I whittled Gothmog's health down and he was forced to flee, and I don't think I've run to a save point faster in my life. But the fight is far from over, since right after this Idriel gets kidnapped and we have to go rescue her, which means taking on several fights without my crutch there to save me at all. Left to fight on without our crucial healer, we come across a fell beast and it absolutely trounces us. We could work around its fear ability with one of Berethor's leadership skills, but its damage output was too much for the party without a good healer. So I resorted to abandoning Idriel for a bit and travelling back to earlier points in the game to level up Hadhod and Elagos until they learned attacks which would allow them to delay the fell beast taking its turn, and then hammering it with attacks until its icon appeared in the action queue again, prompting me to use another delay attack. We head down into the sewers, because why not, and I don't know if it's the grime and the filth and the muck and everything, but not having Idriel with us really got to me, so I resorted to plan B. Yeah, I ran away. I ran away a lot. In fact, I ran away from pretty much every encounter we got until we eventually catch up with Idriel being held hostage atop an island tower and take on the Witch King, but we can't seem to damage him. Turns out those Nazgul we fought at the start of the game managed to stab Berethor with a Morgul blade, and a shard of it has been lodged in his chest ever since, with the Witch King influencing him and slowly hoping to turn him into a wraith. Fucking hell, first Saruman, now this guy, next it's going to turn out that fucking Gollum was possessing him too. Fortunately, Berethor's favourite movie is Upgrade, so he knows how these kind of things usually turn out, so he takes a knife and stabs himself to take the shard out and free himself from the Witch King's influence, and with Idriel back to help keep us alive, we send the Witch King running. Or flying. But yet again, there's no time to waste. We rush off to Minas Tirith and defend the city from Sauron's attack. Things are only getting worse for us though because we're in the endgame now. The fights are tougher, longer, and often back to back with no save points in between. Not only meaning we lose hours of progress every time we die, which happens a lot now, but saving also refreshes our health and action points, which means our collection of acquired items is now more useful than ever during the brief moments we have between fights to get our stats back up. And when I say hours of progress, I mean it. Some of the areas we have coming up have encounters that take a full hour to complete just one fight, so things are really getting desperate now. Slowly, very, very slowly, we work our way up through the levels of Minas Tirith until we reach the throne room where another new enemy set is thrown at us, the Haradrim. These guys really can one-shot us now, so if you're unlucky and don't get the first turn, there's a very good chance you'll be dead before you even have a chance to do anything about it, which happens more than once, and let's leave it at that. Fortunately, there is a save point we can squeeze our way around to, and after a few unlucky runs, we rid the throne room of enemies and collect the Banner of Elendil, which will rally our allies, or something? I don't know, Gandalf told us to get it. Finally, we head down to the Pelennor Fields and fight a dozen Mumakil, a few Haradrim, fight the Witch King with Eowyn and actually kill him this time, and join up with Aragorn and his army of the dead, which is so OP there's no point in any of us actually being there. This is the definition of convincing your boss it's a two-man job. I think this is the one time we could probably give Idriel a break and let her lay down for a bit. Speaking of having her lie down...
They are just...
I shall finish what I should have done!
We have back-to-back fights against the 8 remaining Nazgul, and once they're dealt with, we go back to the love of our last 5 minutes and grieve her death, but Aragorn says no and revives her because there's a big boss fight coming up, so we'll need everyone we can.
How may this be answered, my lord?
We gather our full strength and march on the Black Gate.
Yep, this is it. We group up, rally our courage, and march on the Black Gate. A big final battle to win Frodo and Sam time to save the world. What could possibly be more distracting to the Dark Lord than a full frontal assault on the gates of Moria? Yeah, that'll do it. In a wild turn of events, we somehow find ourselves right before the Eye of Sauron and just go to town on it, whacking with swords and shooting arrows at it while he blasts us with heat and... Honestly, I don't know what they were thinking. They literally had the perfect opportunity to finish off with a big battle of the Black Gate, the literal last stand of all three peoples. Maybe they could have even had all 6 characters fighting at the same time for the big last stand, but nope, the team just got fucking stoned and said, oh, what if they fought the Giant Eye instead? And somehow that got past the higher-ups and here we are. I do regret not having Idriel give the final blow considering how integral she's been to the run, but at this point I knew I was close to the end and I just wanted to get over that finish line. Come on. Done! Woo! Woo! Oh, oh it's done.
That you should
Oh. Ah.
and
We just whacked the shit out of the Eye of Sauron.
death to bide time.
Oh. Oh, this has been a challenge I've been wanting to do for so long. Oh. My god, I'm gonna bring the microphone. I just pretty much destroyed my setup. So this is something that I've been thinking about doing for years and years, and genuinely, I'm gonna have to go back and find where the first recording of this is. But holy shit, it feels good. Oh my god. And you know what the dumb thing is? You wanna know what the really dumb thing is? I wanna play it again. Not this way. Fuck this way. Don't ever do it this way, okay? Just don't. Like, it's like, I feel like that fucking Brian David Gilbert bit at the end of the Skyrim video, where it's like, should you read every book in Skyrim? No. What? No. How dare you jettison my gift? I did this for you. Like, this is my version of that. I'm like, should you play The Lord of the Rings, The Third Age without ever upgrading your equipment? No. Don't do it. Don't. It's horrible. It's not how the game was meant to be played. Don't do it. The only reason I survived this long is because I love this game. I genuinely love this game. This is one of the games, this is up there for me with like The Simpsons Hit and Run and what's called the Warner Brothers Harry Potter games. Those games that you go to the effort of getting the console for. This is one of them for me. Same with like Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King and Two Towers and all that kind of stuff, like those legendary games. I recognize that not everyone knows what this game is, and a lot of the time when I mention it to people, they look at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's a fairly niche game, and I understand that, but to me, this is a classic PS2 game that pulls me back constantly, and I don't want to play the game like this. Fuck that. I want to play it again getting the armor. I want to feel that power now, like, of playing the game just as you're meant to. Because, oh my god, as satisfied as I am that I finished that, and as glad as I am that I finally did it, oh, I'm never gonna do it again. I'm never doing that again. Whew. Thank you for watching, whoever's watched this. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. I don't know how long it's going to be. This might be 10 minutes, it might be half an hour, it could be longer, I don't know. Because I don't know how I'm going to cut this down into a video. But to anyone who is watching this, thank you. Know that you are watching me achieve something that I've wanted to do for a long, long time. And even though it sounds ridiculous, I am genuinely proud that I finally did that. And I'm never gonna do it again. Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your night. Bye bye.